Hi everyone. Today we're going to be walking you through the contract process for one of our physician workflows. And what I have open in front of you right now is essentially what we call a swim lane, which we help all of our clients develop that shows their process and how it will function inside Ntrax. So to give you a little background on this document, so you're understanding everything we're going through, each time that we have a little square here, this matches up to an action that somebody's going to have to perform with inside Ntrax. So these are all labeled so we know what we're doing and with a brief overview. And anywhere that we have a diamond, that is referring to anytime there's a decision that needs to be made. Usually this is a question that's on their action that they're performing. And so this just kind of helps us guide through exactly what all the different processes will be. As well, across the rows that we have, these are what we call our swim lanes, and these all correspond to somebody who's performing a role within the workflow. So to give you some background for this workflow that we developed, the contract owner in this place is somebody that is the administrator of a center that is for hospice or home health. So these people own the contract, maintain the relationships with their physicians. Administrative support is a role that is essentially above across all the different centers. And what they do is they help manage the relationship, kind of a physician recruiting piece. So they help make sure they get all the required documentation and really help out the contract owners. The business approver role are people that function essentially above the regions of the different centers that are looking through and approving to make sure the business justification is correct. The contract admin is within the legal team, and they're people that are also help ensuring that all the documentation is there, that everything is compliant, and kind of also help as a stopgap to make sure if anything needs to be reviewed by the attorney in more depth. Bradley, in this case, is our F&B provider, and so they perform a role in that they are helping enter the rates for the medical directors. Then we have a couple levels of approvals based on what rate the percentile falls into for their rate. And so what we can do with Inside Ntrax is help route that to the correct person based on what rate it falls into. And then we have the attorney, who is serving, again, kind of reviewing, redlining any documentation necessary, and they also perform a function of help looking at any compensation that's below kind of where they expected it to be. Finally, we have our physician slash physician group, that is the party to the contract. We have our internal signer slash signature authority, and then also we have accounts payable, who just receives the notification at the end when everything's completed. So that is a lot of information right up front, but we're going to walk through each step here in the process, and we'll start to become clear as we walk through it. Now that we've seen the flow and how everything functions on here, we can show you how it works in real life. So to start a new workflow, I will go to the menu to start that off right here up at the top, and then come down here to a sub menu and then click on physician workflow. Now, once I click that start, it's going to load my first message that I need to do. So this one right here, this is going to correspond specifically to this first box for request physician. So in this place, again, the person that is the contract owner has that relationship with the physician and is at that hospital location. So all they need to do now is pick the facility and legal entity that will be part of the contract. So here they type in, and automatically we match here for the Asian American Home Health of Oakland. And we select from our list of entities as well. And now we've got them selected. Now, if we needed to, if this was a kind of an agreement that had additional facilities or legal entities that was part of the contract, anything that's multiple entities, we could add those in here. But since we don't need to do that, we'll move down, and now we select the category for this agreement. So we have a few different types that we could do for this one. We will just say it's a medical director of home health. And once we've got that first information, now we just need to say what our business justification is for this position, why we need it. And we have a couple options here. One, we can do an attachment where we can upload a form, or we can just fill out the online form here with you, which in this case is just one question. Our old medical director left. Need a new one. And then the last question on here, do they need to choose the person who's appropriate for approving this? Now, this would normally be a list of a lot of people that could be appropriate approvers. For this test instance, we just have one person selected called business approver. Now, once we've got all this information in here, we just come up to the top and click finish. Now, this is going to bring us into the inbox screen, and this is where you manage all of your messages, and generally you just have maybe one, which is for your own messages as they come in here. But I have tabs across the top that corresponds to each of the different actors along the side here. And so they all match up, and so that way, for testing and demoing purposes, we can switch between all of them. But for a normal user, you wouldn't have access to see and edit everybody's. Since we do have access here, we can switch over to the business approver that we just sent it to. And here we go. And they have a new message. As I open the message, I see information that says client admin. That's the name of my user account that I was using. They have submitted a request for a medical director agreement. Review the business justification below and decide to approve or reject. So as I scroll down here, I can see Home Health of Oakland that we selected, ABC Hospice, medical director, all the information that was just put in here, including justification. I can't edit any of it. I'm restricted from doing that. But I can come up here to the ability that I do have, and I can either approve or reject it. Now again, according to our spreadsheet, that's our little diamond right here. If I do not approve, then that'll end the process and send a notification. But since we want to show off everything in the workflow, we will approve it, which is then going to send it to our admin support team to identify the candidate. So we approve, click finish, and then now it's going to go to our admin support team. So we just need to click on their message for identifying their candidate. All right. So now that I'm in the admin support team, I do have the ability to come in here and change some of the previous answers, just in case the contract owner entered the wrong legal entity. Perhaps they weren't sure which one, or they mistakenly entered the wrong facility category, anything like that. They can come in here and change those. We have a few new questions as well. When is this commencement date for this agreement? As well as the term of it, how long it's going to last, and then you see as I put that in there, it automatically populated out 2 years in the future what the termination date would be for this agreement. And then I come down here, and now I get to select who the physician or the physician group is going to be. The first option that we have on here is to search in our address book. If you're not able to find somebody in the address book, you can create a new entry. So we go in here and search for a physician, and we found here. We found Corey Godfrey, and it's going to go ahead and populate all the address NPI information right here that we have. And so if I need to update any here, if anything in the email address is changed or physical address, I can go in here and update it if I need to. But if everything looks good, then I can just click finish and go on. So since we have finished now, the admin support team identifying the candidate, it's going to come up here for the contract owner to give the final go or no go on approving this candidate and for this position. And assuming that we say yes there, it's going to come back to admin support to perform some credentialing duties. So I switch over here, and this is our business owner, and they get a message that says they need to make an approval decision for Corey Godfrey. Their question is just, should this request continue? Yes or no, terminate. Again, I can scroll down, they see all the information about Corey and all the other items that was previously selected. And they say, yes, let's continue. And so then now that's going to come back to our admin support team to perform some kind of credentialing functions and enter more information about the physician. So at this point in time, the main thing that they're doing is providing information about their specialty and years in there that are all necessary for processing the FMV. So if we say this is a cardiologist with 20 years experience, and we then also have the ability to do secondary and tertiary as well if we want. But if you notice, the only one, we have a red asterisk on these up here because these questions are required. And actually, if I don't have anything mentioned here, you see it might get an error message that says, hey, this is required. If I try to proceed, I get an error message up top that says, please complete all required fields. So it won't let me get past here. However, secondary and tertiary specialties aren't always applicable, and so those ones are not required, and we can proceed without entering anything in there. But if we want to, we can say Not only are they cardiologists, but they also have 10 years in anesthesiology. Once we finish there, that is going to go down to the people that are processing and generating our fair market evaluations down here, and then they got a message indicating that they need to enter rates, or excuse me, rate percentile ranges. So they received all the information about the physician that they need, their specialties, their location facility, everything they need to kind of process their F&B. And so now they just put in all these rates for the different percentiles. So these are not going to be particularly real numbers, but I just put them in because they're easy to understand how later functional in our system works. I'm just going to match up the rate with each of the percentile ranges. And that's all they have to enter here. They click finish. And then at this point in time, it'll go back up to admin support to perform that rate negotiation with the physician. So now, for our admin support team, they're performing their rate negotiation, and they're also gathering a lot of other information about the physician. So now here, based on the information that we put before of the F&V rates, it is all going to be determined for routing for appropriate approvals. So if I enter anything up to essentially the 50th percentile, then it's going to let me know right underneath that, hey, we're in the 20th to 50th percentile. If I go above, it'll let me know when we hit those different levels. And okay, now we need additional approval. We need to select an approver for level 1 F&B. And so this is all based on the criteria for this client's needs for where they need extra people to approve any rates above a certain percentile. So we just have that all built into the system. But again, since this is just a simple agreement that we're going through here, we'll say that we're in the safe zone of 25th to 50th percentile, so no need for extra approvals on here. They need to enter information about their rate justification. And then they also need to specify whether this is a core contract, that is a pre-approved template that has no changes. And this determines a kind of major branching path for this process, because this client has several agreements that have already been approved by legal. And if the only thing we're doing is entering rate information and dates and names and not changing any of the other terms that are on the agreement, then actually it doesn't need to go down into the legal part of the swim lane. It can just stay up here with the admin support team, and they can handle negotiation relationship with the physician, and everything will kind of go through there. But if there are changes to the agreement that they already know at this point in time, then that'll need to go down to the legal department, to the contract admin, and then the attorney to take a look at. However, again, for this one, we're going to say that this is a core agreement and that there's no changes needed. Okay. Now we get to the point where we are entering in, gathering other pieces of documentation needed for the physician as well. So there's two ways we can do that. One, we can just open up a file explorer by clicking on the browse button and selecting our W9 here. Or if we have files open on our computer, like I do on my other monitor, I can actually just select one of those for the CV and just drag and drop it right here. And that'll also upload it. So we just need to attach all our pieces of information, our certificate of insurance, our screens, F&B report, just all the pieces of information that we know that need to be done for processing each physician. And once we have all that completed, we can hit the finish button up here. And at this point in time, this is going to generate a document for us. So since we stayed on this top path of saying, hey, this is a pre-approved template, there's no changes, the system is actually going to take a drafty agreement, insert all the form fields through the questions that we answered, and using HotDoc, one of our partners, we will generate this agreement, and at that point in time, we'll be able to review it with the physician. As I refresh here, I see I get a message for reviewing the draft. And as I load this up, it's going to have a document ready for us to look at. Okay, so right here up at the top that we see, we have our medical director individual draft. So as we take a look at this, we see everything that's highlighted in yellow are all the fields that were inputted by the system. So again, at this point in time, this is where we're reviewing with the physician. And so again, we have a path here, right? So if we view the physician says, hey, everything looks great and good to go, let's sign this, then we would generate a new version without the draft watermark. However, if the physician takes a look at it and says, hey, actually, we need these couple small changes, need to make sure arbitrations in Delaware or whatever kind of weird small red lines and changes they need to be, then we'll actually go down to the bottom path here and send that to the legal team. So we say, yes, it continues, but the physician does have revisions to the draft. So at this point in time, we need to upload their revisions. And again, these would have been retrieved through essentially emailing the draft over and getting some red lines from the physician. So we upload our revised draft right here. So as we hit finish now this is going to go to the legal team through the contract admin. And the contract admin's first action is to view it and essentially make sure that there were no additional red lines put in there, that everything is properly marked as necessary before it gets to the attorney for review. So they can open this up by clicking on it right here and decide, do they need to upload a revised draft? Were there any additional changes, red lines you need to point out? If we say no, that means everything's good to go and we're good to go down to the attorney. So as I switch over to the attorney's message box, we see now they have an action for reviewing the draft. So now they have the ability to see the revised draft, and they say if they approve or reject. If they reject, then they can upload an additional revised draft, and then that will go up, and they also need to mention the comments. Say why they are, what kind of changes they had, and then this will go back to the admin support team to then communicate with the physician. And so this is all represented by the loop right here. Review the physician, make red line changes, review, draft, and approve through the attorney. So this loop can continue to happen as many times as possible. Typically, though, when we talk to our clients, we say, if this is happening more than 2 or 3 times of a loop, then everybody should probably just get on the phone together and see what kind of issue it is. But the system does have capability to continue to go through here. But if we say for our needs, we say, nope, we reviewed with the physician says everything is all right. Then at that point in time, we can approve them and it'll be ready to start the signature process. So we say, yes, this should continue. No, the physician does not have any revisions to the draft. And essentially, we are ready for signing at this point in time. So what this will do in the system then is it will generate a DocuSign preparation box, and they'll go through the signing, who the signers are for both sides, and then send that out through DocuSign to their email accounts to perform electronic signatures. Then, once those are completed, we just get notifications back to all the appropriate parties, and everything will be finished.